From winning their first ever championship in the year of 1951 and appearing in 4 championships, to winning a Super Bowl as recently as the 2021 NFL season, the Los Angeles Rams have a storied history to say the least. Join me today in learning all about the Rams' history, starting back in the beginning of 1936. When the team was founded in 1936, they were founded by a guy named Homer Marshman. Now, they were founded in 1936, obviously, as I already mentioned. Now, the problem is they were founded where nobody thinks that this team would actually be founded from. They were founded in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, as you can obviously expect, there was probably a lot of competition. They originally joined in the AFL, but would join the NFL just a year after their founding. They wouldn't do much for their first 6 years, as the powerhouses like the Packers, Bears, Giants, and Redskins were pretty much already running everything. In 1945, though, the Rams would win in the NFL championship. The most interesting part about this is that in the same season, they would have a receiver by the name of Jim Benton, I don't know how to say his last name, would record a whopping 303 receiving yards in a singular game. To this day, that remains the 5th most receiving yards ever in a singular game. Just a year removed from winning it all, in 46, the Rams would move to California and be known as the Los Angeles Rams. It would be a few more years until their next championship, which they would win in 1951, after appearing in 4 championships. But after this championship, they really didn't do much else noteworthy for a long time. The Rams played in the Los Angeles Coliseum and drew more than 100,000 fans to attend on multiple occasions, which still remains a record today. They would lose a lot during this span, but yet remained rather successful, as the business executive would be the main figure in the start of broadcasting games over the television. The most noteworthy player from the Rams up until 1960 would be Norm Van Brocklin, who would win an MVP award in 1960. Starting in 1963 primarily is when the Rams would start drafting Hall of Famers and legends we know today. The biggest name, Deacon Jones. Other names that deserve a mention are Merlin Olsen, Jack Youngblood, and Roman Gabriel, who would win the 1969 NFL MVP award. Even with all-time greats from 1967 to 1978, LA would make the playoffs 8 times, coming up short in all. In 1979, hopes were high as LA would make their first Super Bowl appearance in their history. Unfortunately for them, they were facing the greatest dynasty of the 70s, that being the Pittsburgh Steelers. That being said, it wasn't a total failure for them, as they would prove to everyone they were truly special. Or so we thought. Spoiler, they wouldn't even make it back to the Super Bowl until 1999. 1979, it wouldn't be all losses though. They would draft plenty of Hall of Famers that we all know and love today. Names like Eric Dickerson, Kevin Green, Jerome Bettis, Isaac Bruce, Kevin Carter, and even Orlando Pace. Despite the fact that they would only appear in the playoffs 6 times in 20 years, they would be pretty dang good at drafting. Oh, and another pretty big thing here, the Rams would relocate to the city of St. Louis in 1995. While this was a pretty hot topic at the time, as many owners originally protested the idea, they would eventually wiggle their way there. Why would the owners oppose it? Well, the 2 main reasons actually. Many owners felt it would be a slap in the face to the fans who've supported them for a long time, and the main reason, obviously, money. Moving from LA to St. Louis not only would make the team lose money, but so would the league, with a smaller market, obviously. Moving on to their next chapter, the St. Louis Rams would now have a bright future. Now, granted, they're in a different city, but they have a lot of young players, they have a lot of good players, and things are just looking up for this franchise as a whole. In 1998, the Rams would sign Kurt Warner. This would be a really smart move, as he would win MVP in 1999 and 2001. Nonetheless, in 1999, the Rams were a powerhouse. They would go 13-3, having 7 Pro Bowlers on their roster. Players I've already mentioned, but some new names as well. Recently drafted and who should be in the Hall of Fame, Torrey Holt. Another should-be Hall of Famer, London Fletcher. Oh, and they signed Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk in the offseason. Either way, this team would be known as the greatest show on turf, as it was and still is one of the best offenses ever. Warner won MVP, Faulk won Offensive Player of the Year, and Dick Vermeil won Coach of the Year. They wouldn't have the easiest route to the Super Bowl facing the Vikings and Buccaneers, but would make it to the Super Bowl anyway. There they would have one of the best Super Bowls ever, known as the 1-yard short Super Bowl, where Kevin Dyson came up just short of the game-tying touchdown. Although the Rams were favored to win, the Titans were a sneaky good team, having plenty of legends themselves, such as Bruce Matthews, Steve McNair, and Eddie George. Not naming them all because the Titans will eventually get their own video as well. Marshall Faulk would have a Super Bowl to forget, having a mere 17 rush yards on 10 attempts. Although he was really important in the pass-catching portion, having 90 receiving yards. The same wouldn't be said for Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, and Torrey Holt. Warner would win MVP of the game, throwing for 414 yards and 2 touchdowns. This would be the only Super Bowl win for the Rams in that span. They would make it to another one, but were bested by the future GOAT, Tom Brady. Warner and Falk would combine for 3 straight MVPs, and Falk would win 3 straight Offensive Player of the Years himself. Both happened in the span of obviously 3 straight years. Starting in 2005, the St. Louis Rams would have one of the worst stretches of the NFL history. Now, when I say one of the worst stretches, I quite literally mean like one of the most forgettable stretches of history. Just recently winning a Super Bowl, the Rams would have a winning record 0 times from the years 2005 to 2016. They would flip-flop coaches a lot, but the most notable guy here, Jeff Fisher. One of the few bright spots during this time is the often forgotten Steven Jackson. When I say one of the worst stretches, I quite literally mean one of the worst stretches. Their top 5 draft selections in the time outside of Aaron Donald, I'm excluding Aaron Donald from all this, would be Jared Goff, who's underappreciated now, but still, Sam Bradford, Janoris Jenkins, LaMarcus Joyner, and Todd Gurley. I almost forgot to mention Ryan Fitzpatrick. He deserves some love. In this time frame, out of their 106 drafted players, they would all have a combined 26 Pro Bowl appearances. Take it even further, if you exclude Aaron Donald from this, they would have a mere 17 Pro Bowl appearances. They would draft inside the top 10 7 times. While yes, the Rams did have a couple of studs in this time, overall, this has got to be one of the worst stretches ever. St. Louis would then move back to Los Angeles in 2015. If there's anything I forget to mention about the Rams' history, comment down below and let me know what it is. To the most recent part of the Rams' history. Now, at first, their defense would become legendary, and then their offense just kind of took over, and then their defense took back over. It's kind of confusing how the whole thing went, but we'll get to that as I go through it. Their defense would become legendary mainly because of a guy named Aaron Donald. LA is back, baby. In 2017, the Rams would improve from their 4-12 record the year previous to go 11-5 and make it to the playoffs. Sean McVay won Coach of the Year, Aaron Donald won his first of 3 Defensive Player of the Years, and Gurley would win Offensive Player of the Year. LA would unfortunately lose in their wildcard matchup. Fast forward to 2018, they were hungry. This time around, their offense would be electric. They would get even better, going 13-3 in 2018, and they would make it back to the big dance yet again. Remember how I mentioned earlier in the video that the Rams lost to the Super Bowl to the future GOAT and Tom Brady? Well, guess what? He's back. This time, the Rams offense was ranked 2nd in the entire league, and they were a powerhouse. Now it's time that we rewind just a bit. The NFC Championship against the New Orleans Saints. This game was one for the ages. The two teams were tied up with under 2 minutes to go, and the Saints were driving down the field. On 3rd and 10, Drew Brees lined up in the pocket, snapped the ball, threw to a wide-open Tommy Lee Lewis, where the infamous no-called pass interference would happen. Despite this, the Rams would wind up winning in overtime, bringing us back to the Super Bowl. The Rams' offense would be as quiet as crickets versus New England's defense. That would just essentially shut them down. The Rams lost this game 13-3. Tom Brady, yet again, would take the throne from the Rams. After this, the Rams kind of figured that they were in win-now mode, although they would go 9-7 the year after and just 10-6 in 2020, and they knew that they had to make some moves to win the Super Bowl. The Rams knew they had to make changes. Todd Gurley had retired due to his knee issues. They knew they couldn't rely on their run game. So why not trade for Jalen Ramsey and make the defense any better? Oh, and on top of that, get rid of Goff for Matt Stafford. They did all that. They did sell their entire future, but they didn't care. In the end, it worked out well. I haven't even mentioned yet that the Rams decided to draft Cooper Kupp, who would be absolutely insane. In the end, it worked out perfectly well. They would crush the Cardinals in the wildcard round and sneak by both the Bucs and the Niners in the divisional and conference championship rounds, respectively. This is where it all pays off. Los Angeles made it back to the Super Bowl and would wind up beating the Joe Burrow-led Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl 23-20. Cooper Kupp would win Super Bowl MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. In the 2022 season, the injury bug would hit LA, and we would see the now demise of the Rams. While I personally think the Rams are going to bounce back and be a good team, Stafford's getting older with a throwing shoulder injury, Donald's been contemplating retirement, and Jalen Ramsey was just recently traded to the Miami Dolphins, leaving Cooper Kupp as the only certainty the Rams have for their future. All in all, the Rams have a beautiful history and are definitely one of the most storied franchises in the NFL, having 22 Hall of Famers and others sure to be inducted, winning 2 NFL championships and 2 Super Bowls. If you like this video, be sure to check out this video I made on the Buffalo Bills franchise. Don't forget to subscribe and like, as they are both free, and comment which franchise you want to see next. That's it for me. Peace out.